Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that the meeting is now live.
Thank you very much, Simon. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our CPED meeting for February 13th, 2025. Thank you to everyone for the last minute change to a virtual meeting. Although it looks beautiful, we're thinking that the weather is going to change and we don't want anyone driving in bad weather conditions. So we'll call the meeting to order, and the land acknowledgement is that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and the traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Now, I do know that Simon, has done an audio and a video check, but we'll say good morning, anyone, and welcome Councillor Becky Kent, District 3.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Councillor Trish Purdy, District 4.
Apologies, I'm in my car, so I am not going to have my video on until I get home.
No worries. Councillor Cuddle, District 11.
Good morning, everyone.
Thank you. And our Vice Chair, Councillor Janet Steele.
Good morning, Kathy, and everyone.
Morning. And Councillor St. Amand, District 16.
Good morning, all.
Good morning. So now that we know that we've got all the council members here, we do have members of the public and our staff with us. And as they come onto the agenda, we'll say hello and do introductions. We'll ask now for approval of the minutes of January 16th, 2025.
I'll move those, Madam Chair.
I can
Thank you,
second that.
Thank you, Councillor Cuddle, for the second. All those in, oh, sorry. Any errors or omissions? Seeing that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Our motion is carried. Approval of the order of business and approval of additions or deletions are next. Mr. Clerk, do we have any additions or deletions, sir?
Thank you, Chair. We have no requests for additions or deletions as received through the clerk's office. However, there is a request for a deferral for item 10.3.2, Nova Scotia Heritage Trust proposal for strengthening built heritage protection. And it is the request at this time that that presentation item be deferred to the April 17th, 2025 meeting of Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee.
Wonderful. Well, we can do that. So can we now have a motion to approve the order of business then as presented?
So moved.
I think I saw Councillor Steele and then
Yes.
heard Councillor St. Amand as a second.
Sure.
I did. Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Opposed, nay. We have an agenda and an order of business. Business arising out of the minutes, there is none. A call for declaration of conflict of interests. Hearing none. Motions of rescission, there are none. Motions of reconsideration, there are none. Motions of rescission, there are none. Consideration of deferred business, there is none. Notice of tabled matters, there is none. Correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Mr. Clerk, do we have any correspondence received?
Thank you, Chair. There has been correspondence received for items 11 and item 13.1.1. All correspondence has been circulated to members of the Standing Committee.
Thank you. And to petitions, do we have any petitions?
Thank you, Chair. None received through the clerk's office.
Great. And so now we're at presentations. And so 10.3.1 is a presentation from the Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame, their capital campaign. This is when we get to the best part of our meetings. So we have Bruce Rainey, President and CEO of the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame, to come and present. And so you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, so 10.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, 10 minutes. And I will do my part to jump in with an audio cue when there are 30 seconds remaining.
Sounds wonderful. Bruce, welcome to CPED.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. And I see Brendan Smithson on here. Brendan and I were on a committee. He knows I can't order breakfast in 10 minutes, so this is going to be a challenge. But I want to thank you all very much for taking the time to hear what we have to say today. Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame has been around for 6 decades. That's our old logo on the left, our new logo on the right, a new logo that would be unveiled hopefully at some point this year. And that's my extremely remarkable small but mighty staff. Shane Mailman, who has been a part of the Hall staff for 25 years, Katie Tanner for 10, and Carolyn Sevchik in the Royal Blue, who's been part of the Hall staff for more than 30 years. I am the rookie, but we all love the power of sport, and we all love what we do. You can switch slides. And what we do is we preserve the history of Nova Scotia sport. We make sure that the greatest athletes, builders, coaches, volunteers, grassroots figures are recognized forever. And we really try to make sure that this message and these messages are shared with children across the province, because it's our belief that sport is a powerful teacher, and that the lessons of sport are lessons that can be learned for life, and that it's a pretty tough time right now to be a kid with social media self-esteem onslaught, and to learn that you can do it from here and be successful from Nova Scotia, and that you can do it with humility and grace. These are things that we think are really important to impart to kids across the province. You can switch slides. This is a bit of us by the numbers. I draw your attention to the bottom left cloud. Free admission. We've never charged admission. 2 big reasons. One, we've all been there long enough to see families come in that would really struggle to be there if we charged admission. 2, we're always open for Scotiabank Centre events. We are located in Scotiabank Centre, adjacent to the box office, and we like to be there for, people at a hockey game to come in pre-game or during intermission, and admission would be difficult with those sort of ephemeral type visits. So 580 inductees, about 40% of them are from Halifax County, the rest from rural Nova Scotia. We have 8,000 artifacts in our collection, everything from baseball gloves to baseballs to jerseys to Sidney Crosby's dryer. Thank goodness he played for Team Canada last night. We have a 12-member board. It's chaired by the CEO of the Office Interiors organization, Mr. Jim Mills. He does a wonderful job for us. And we're very proud of our education program. This is where we either go out to schools or have schools come to us. And there's a picture there on screen. That's Ellie Black in the middle. She's a regular presenter for us. But this is an opportunity for us to reach kids with that aforementioned power of sport. All of the things from losing with humility, winning with grace, knowing that you can achieve remarkable provincial, national, international success from Nova Scotia, and knowing that words like, determination and perseverance, they're used a lot, but they're used a lot because they matter. And this is what we share with kids all the time. And we always try to have a Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Famer with us to do that, either at schools across the province or at our facility, and it's free. Simon, you can go to that.
Excuse me, Bruce.
Yes.
Sorry, we just lost your presentation for a moment there, and it looked like we were getting somebody else's Teams messages on top of your presentation.
Pardon me, if we can just take a quick pause. I've paused the time, and we will just sort that out at the moment, and it'll just take a minute now.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Sorry about that.
Quite all right.
This is just like we get that presentation in its entirety without interruptions. And I just see that we can just welcome, it looks like Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wonder if I quickly just make pass on a question to Bruce. Bruce, I'm still waiting for my appointment from the Nova Scotia Richmond Amateur Baseball Association from Richmond County into the Hall of Fame. I'm still waiting, Bruce. Come on, man.
Yeah, look, you're still on the docket. You're going to be around for another 20 to 25 years, do you think?
Man, the right side of that bench was warm, and nobody pumped it up like me. So
no, I heard you were one of the best by far.
Thank you.
And it looks like we have our presentation back.
Okay.
We're just going to put it in presentation mode, Bruce, and Simon, you'll let us know when we're good to go again. How's that?
Sounds good.
Next one, Simon, if you don't mind.
Simon,
Yep, and I think we're just waiting for if my colleague can just full screen that, we can.
Yes.
And Simon, how much do I have left, just so I know?
Oh, yep, 7 minutes.
Good. Okay. because I'd love to leave time for questions if there are any. So this is going well, I think. Yeah.
Back one more slide, I believe.
Back one more there. Yep.
Yeah. I don't think it's full screened yet.
Nope. We love technology.
Okay.
Especially
I
when
think
it
we
works
should
in
just
our-
tell the presenter too that he has 10 minutes to present and there's opportunities for questions after that, actually. So,
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
You beat me
questions.
to it, Councillor Cuddle. That's great.
Madam Chair, if this becomes too long, I'm happy to continue without the slides. They're not necessary. They were just visual aids. So you let me know what you prefer here as we go along.
Thank you. Appreciate that consideration. We'll just give it another moment. And I do know that sometimes the slides help people listen. I can only imagine the stress that
Thank you,
somebody
Chair.
may-
I'm going to just take over and I'll
Great.
run us through the slide presentation.
Thank you, Simon. We're very appreciative of your skills. So Bruce, please do continue.
Simon, if you're able to go back one, that would be great. There you go. So when actually one ahead now. There you go. Hold there. When COVID hit and all museums across Nova Scotia basically shut down, we took it as an opportunity to redesign and rebuild. We were a good provincial sport hall of fame. We were formerly great, but we were good because we needed that new metaphorical coat of paint. We had been there since 2003, and we realized we certainly didn't meet accessibility standards. We had no wheelchair ramps or an elevator or washrooms. Our display space was cramped, and a lot of our artifacts were actually in a storage locker on Brunswick Street and not on site where they could be climate controlled, temperature controlled, and humidity controlled. So we embarked on a capital campaign and a rebuild that will give us about 35% more square footage, more room to tell stories. We'll have an elevator, we'll have washrooms. For the first time ever, we're going to have windows, which for us is a really big deal, trust me. Artifacts can be moved on site for maximum preservation. And also we're going to have room to recognize not necessarily Hall of Famers, but people in traditionally marginalized communities that have made a great impression and great impact on sports in their community. We're talking about everything from African Nova Scotia to Indigenous to Paralympians to Special Olympians to women of excellence who oftentimes have not gotten the press they have deserved in the past. So we'll have room to tell those stories that we previously did not have. That's going to be a spot in our hall called Where We All Can Play. So 35% more square footage. We're very, very excited. Still in the same location at Scotiabank Centre. Simon, you can switch. We are about 35 to 40% of the way through the first phase of construction. And the total budget for this build is in the neighborhood of $5.5 million. From the provincial government, we've received $3.1 million, very kind. From the federal government, $400,000, with likely more to come through a couple of grants that we feel good about. We are committed to raise at least $1.2 million, which leaves us in the neighborhood of $750,000 to $800,000 that we still have to raise as we cruise toward the finish line and head towards completion. And so that is the crux of my visit to you today, to sort of gauge interest in HRM's possibility of a financial commitment to our hall in the neighborhood of 4 to 5% of the final budget line, which would be somewhere between $240,000 and $300,000. That would be enormously helpful to us, and it would allow us to say that all three levels of government contributed to our build, which would be, I think, a nice thing as well. And as I mentioned, we're not looking for it all. We've raised a lot already. and are committed to raising more on our own. If you're asking what we bring to the city, Simon, you can switch. We have an induction ceremony every year that is always sold out, 700 people downtown Halifax. That's rooms and restaurants. Once every 18 months, we put on a really big event. The picture on the left there is one from a few years back that Sidney Crosby and Al McGuinness and Colleen Jones and Karen Furno and Ellie Black headlined at the new Trade Center. We are a great site for press conferences in downtown Halifax, and we love to bring kids in by the thousands to see our facility, take part in our education program. We think we've been a wonderful addition to Scotiabank Center for the last really 2 decades. A wonderful thing for people to do pre-game and during intermissions is to come in, learn about Nova Scotia sports history. We celebrate it, we hopefully inspire through it, and we think we're a wonderful addition to Scotiabank Center and a really nice jewel in the downtown Halifax sort of tourism sector and stopping point. So this is what we're going to look like from the outside on Duke Street. For the first time ever, we're going to have window frontage. It's the last slide there, Simon. We've actually built out so there'll be some street frontage. There'll be windows. Those are the ones I referenced. A view of Scotia Square, and if you look hard enough, a little bit of a view of the harbor. That's our boardroom right there. That's hopefully a mom and her daughter coming in for the first of many times. So our goal with this rebuild is to make it way more fun, way more interactive, way more family oriented, and a line that we've used over and over. We want to be a place that families come and they leave and they can't wait to come back to again. We are huge believers in the power of sport. We think we're a big part of downtown Halifax. We have a tremendous amount to offer, and we need some help heading towards the finish line. So I can leave it right there and open the floor for questions. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for your patience while we worked through this. Councillors, if we could use the chat box to make our list of councillors who may have questions for Bruce. No questions?
If I could add one more thing, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It just popped up, so it could be just a little bit of delay. So we have 2 councillors so far on the list there, Bruce. The first question will come from Councillor Kent.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, less of a question, but I guess more of a comment at this point. Possibly a question could come out of it, but I just wanted to say, Bruce, thank you for the energy and commitment that you put into this. The sport has always been a huge part of Nova Scotia experience and lifestyle, really. And I won't bore you with all of my accolades, but as a former athlete at some point in my life, and I know a lot of the members of the Hall of Fame actually, and I'm just so thrilled that we have the opportunity to highlight them. One question for you, because I don't know how this your induction and that sort of thing goes, and I wonder if you have a space for the trailblazers. Sometimes trailblazers don't have the accolade that would put them on the screen of and the radar of the the adjudicators for the high level athletes that we probably, or certainly high profile athletes that we are highlighting in the center. But trailblazers are the folks that get it all started. And I tell you where I land on that right now as a former St. Mary's soccer player. I was able to go to one of the most recent Halifax Tides women's professional soccer team here event. And to me, there is a long history of how we got there and how exciting it is now to have a women's professional soccer team in our city and in our province, with international athletes from all over the world. It's intended to be, it is expected to be, that team is expected to be a very high profile team in the league. But getting to the league was a journey. Like I played soccer in school, but at that time, women's field hockey was the sport of choice until a little bit of soccer came along for the women. And then in university, we were not, when I was there in 1981 to 84, we were not even a sanctioned university sanctioned league. And so I know of a number of women in our city and across the province. The Valley, of course, has been a huge contributor to women's soccer. And I suspect there's long journeys and long stories related to most sports in Nova Scotia. So I guess I'll boil it down to, where do you, and do you, and if you don't, would you consider having a space for that, the journeys that got us there and the people that helped get us there, to bring some of our athletes who we are now showcasing to the front and center? Because, you know, I'll just leave it here. Even Sidney Crosby. Sidney was identified very early in his life. We all are so proud of him. But there were coaches and there were programs in the Cole Harbour area that recognized it, right? And recognized that amazing skill set and helped to nurture him go along. And I just think there's a story that should be told.
Thank you, Councillor Kent.
Yeah, Councillor Kent, thank you very much. We do have a category every year. It's called the Builder category. We induct 2 builders every year. And in that category, there are legendary coaches, there are legendary trainers. This past year, we inducted Dr. Tina Atkinson, who's made a huge impact on concussion research, and she's worked with everyone from Ellie Black to the paddling team that won a medal at the Olympics this past summer. And we inducted Danny Flynn, who has sent 150 players to the NHL from grassroots coaching in Dartmouth through St. FX. So every year there are 2 of these. You call them trailblazers, we can call them pioneers, we can call them coaches, builders, grassroots legends that go in, because we are well aware that it doesn't happen without them. Well aware.
Wonderful. And is there a space within the hall that highlights them as well?
Yeah, there is. So the hall's being built right now, but we have a large. I keep calling them quadrants, but my staff gets mad because they're not exactly It's anyway. Yes, there's a large area that will recognize builders.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, no question.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Cuddle.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Yeah, so this is exciting. I'm glad to see, to learn about your kind of expanded, focus in sport around inclusion and kind of different aspects of the sport. I think that's awesome, and I think, that's the most, for me, that's the most important part. I was having a bit of a tech issue here, setting up at home. And I might have missed it in the presentation, but what's your timeline? So I see that you've almost raised all your funds. Congratulations on that, by the way. That I know that's always an effort. And I'm just wondering what the timeline for completion of this entire project is.
Well, Councillor, we hope to have several soft openings between now and November. November 8th will be our 2025 induction ceremony. And if all goes well, and please don't hold me to this right to the period and crossing of T's, because construction is a variable business. But if all goes well, we'd like to have a huge provincial party that weekend as we induct our class of 2025 and sort of reopen the refurbished Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame. So we're looking at a few more months with a target that we really think we can hit and hope to hit of November 8th that weekend.
November 8th. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. Well, let's hope all goes according to plan.
Yes, I'm with you there.
Thank you very much. And now we have a question from Councillor Steele.
Thanks very much for the presentation, Bruce. Very inspiring on a Thursday morning. I think we should have been in person for this one. Just a question more. I'm very excited about the educational aspect of what you're doing. You mentioned that you've been engaged many students across the province. Just can you explain a bit how that works? I'm sure you work with education to set that up, but really curious. And then maybe if you could delve a bit, a second part to this question is just if you could delve a bit more, you suggested or wondered if HRM could possibly provide some support. Similar to Councillor Cuddle's question, just in terms of timelines, but was there a particular aspect that you were interested in HRM supporting? So the education part and then the funding part.
100%. So the education, this program has been a part of what we do for almost 20 years now. We're very proud of it. It's actually won some International Sport Heritage Awards for its reach and its scope. It was put together with the help of 3 educators here in Nova Scotia, geared to sort of that, I'm going to call it the age 12 to 15 bracket, when lessons are really becoming part of the fabric of a person. We've been to, I've got a map at the Old Hall. I think we've been to every school in Nova Scotia at least once, in every community. We try to attend with an athlete from that community who has gone on to great success, so that kids can be inspired. You know, the old see it to be it. You can do it no matter where you're from. Conversely, we're going to have a beautiful new theater in this hall where we can invite kids in for the day, and little cubbies to put their coats, and offer them a bit of food and a nice tour of the hall, and that education program as well. It's completely free, and it's about instilling the values of sports. We have an inductee by the name of Mark Smith, who's probably the greatest softball player who ever lived. And he put it so succinctly once. He said, I'm a better supervisor, employee, father, husband, worker, citizen, because of the lessons I learned in sport. How to work with teammates, how to recover from losses, how to win with humility, how to lose with grace. Some of that sounds cliche, but cliches become cliches because they're true. That's the bottom line. And those are lessons we think. I've got 2 boys, ages 18 and 13. I'm sure it was tougher to be a kid in World War II when your dad was heading off overseas. I'm sure that was tougher. But it's certainly tougher right now to be a kid than when I was a kid, with all the social media onslaught. And we believe, and this is the Kool-Aid we drink, we believe it so strongly, that the lessons from sport can help with self-esteem and just help with development. So we share them as often as we can with as many Nova Scotia sport heroes as we can. Always free, by the way. The second part of your question was, I'm not sure. We need, I mean, there's so many different aspects to our phase 2 of construction where your money would go. I can tell you it would go to help us finish the project, and you'd be heavily recognized in the hall. But I don't know that I could say it would go to fund zone 1 or 2. I think it would just go to fund the completion of the construction.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Steele. Councillor Mancini, you may have missed that we were using the chat. So if I didn't see your hand up before, it was because I was looking at the chat. So Councillor Mancini, you're welcome to ask a question as well.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Bruce, good to see you. I'm not on this committee, but I wanted just to chime in here. I have a question for my colleagues that are on the committee. Just a show of hands, how many of you actually been in the Hall of Fame to visit it? Yeah, well, I encourage you all to show up if you haven't. And it is an amazing spot. And, I've gone many, many times. And we have something special here and in Nova Scotia with athletes from Meat Cove to Yarmouth, and even athletes like Councillor Kent, and there are others that have been on council too. So I hopefully someone will bring forward a motion to investigate the request from Bruce and his group at the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents for at least to investigate it. Bruce, the challenge we have many folks approaching us asking for assistance on great projects like this. And the challenge, as you probably know, we're in the middle of budget now, and it's tough, but it's still worthwhile to investigate so we can make a decision based on evidence and what the work that you guys do. I still look forward to my appointment to be at 20 years down the road of warming up the left side of the bench and the River Bourgeois Schooners. But so there you have it, Bruce.
Councillor, I hope I'm still the MC when we induct you. One last thing I'd like to share with you. We have an annual operating budget of in the neighborhood of $600,000 a year. All but about 8% of that we self-sustain. We do it all on our own. So we don't ask a lot, but this is a very rare occasion in our history where it's a milestone rebuild. And we don't like to ask either. We don't, but we do need some help getting to the finish line. And Councillor, I know budgets are a challenge, but I can say with confidence that investing in us would be money well spent. We're a good organization with a 6-decade track record, and I think we're very well respected in HRM and Nova Scotia as a total.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Mancini. Councillor Cuddle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And no question that you know, this organization works hard to make this happen for the public. I think it's important to note that it's free and you know, and volunteer, like, you know, volunteer driven for the most part. So you know, it is a challenging time, to Councillor Mancini's point. Like right now we're going through budget, and it is a super challenging time for everybody out there right now. I mean, there are other, you know, I'm thinking, I can see that Becky's looking at forming a motion for investigation into this, and so I'll happily support that. But I hope through that process, you know, that there are other means that councillors have for supporting this work. I think the ask of 600, you know, was it 600,000?
No, somewhere between 2 and 3 would be remarkably
2 and 3. Where did I get? Oh, that's what's left. That's what's left. Sorry, I'm not doing well with my tech today here. So, you know, I mean, even if you divided that amongst 16 councillors, you know, there's an opportunity for us to at least contribute a portion through our capital district funds. And so it might be good if there's something that we can share with our other councillor colleagues. You know, I know that I'd be willing to contribute towards this, just recognizing what you do for the municipality as a whole and Nova Scotia as a whole. So I'll support this. It looks like, I don't know, Becky, I can't see you, but it looks like you're planning on bringing a motion forward. So I hope you are, because I will support that, and hopefully that will also ignite some other conversations about how we can be supportive of the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cuddle. So looking at the chat, Councillor Steele is next. And then after that, Councillor Kent has another question prior to the consideration of a motion on the table. So Councillor Steele.
I too was planning to do a motion. That was the reason for my intervention, but go ahead, Councillor Kent.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Steele. Councillor Kent. Becky, you're on mute.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. Can you give me a sense of when your timeline is that you would need these funds? As my colleagues have noted, you know, we're in budget for this year. Sometimes squeezing more out of where we are right now is challenging. But depending on when your you know, timeline is, I agree with Councillor Cuddle. There may be other options here as well.
Well, it would be, you know, as soon as reasonably possible. As soon as possible sounds ridiculous because I know this is a process, but as soon as reasonably possible would be great, so that we can, you know, pay off those bills that come due in sort of August, September, October, as we aim towards that hopeful November 8th opening.
November 8th. Okay, good. That's what I wanted reminding of. Yes. So, assuming that there are no further questions, Madam Chair, can I move on with the motion, or do you want? Go ahead.
Before you move on the motion, I think to clarify, if you wouldn't mind, Bruce, the exact dollar value of the ask for the motion might make it more clear.
Sure. So I did go through this quickly, and I apologize because I was trying to stick to my 10 minutes. But the overall build, okay, the overall build is going to come in the neighborhood of 5.5 million.
Right.
So we were wondering if HRM would consider a 3% to 5% of that donation or gift, which would be in the neighborhood of between 225 and 300,000. So
let's put a $300,000 on it, and then we can go down from there if we need to.
Your motion, Councillor Kent. I just wanted to make sure that we were aware of what the dollar value was. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, well, so I will move that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend the Halifax Regional Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer, CAO, to provide a staff report to evaluate and provide options in response to Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame capital campaign request in the amount of $300,000.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Cuddle, the second. Any discussion on the motion, Councillor Kent?
Well, no, I don't have a lot other than to say I'm happy to support this. My colleagues have shared the challenges that we have here, and I know, Bruce, you're a homeowner and a dad, so you know the pressures that are out there. Those are very real for us. However, this is something I'm happy to support. I do encourage you as well, though, that my colleague Councillor Cuddle has noted, and a different stream would be appropriate for the councillors to have consideration. If you write a letter specifically to us as councillors to give some consideration of maybe a joint contribution through our district capital funds, then we would socialize that within our offices to see if any of our colleagues have room in their capital funding commitment to at least, maybe it would just be a little help of a bump up, right?
Okay, so thank you, Councillor Kent. Any other questions from councillors on the motion that's on the floor? If not, we'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Aye.
So hearing no nays, the motion has carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bruce, for a wonderful presentation and discussion. And just so that you do know, there is Councillor St. Amand has advised as well that the community grants program within HRM is open until March 31st, if you think that you might qualify for that community grants program. So we will move on now to our next agenda item.
thank you, folks.
Thank you so much, Bruce.
Wish we could have done it in person, but hopefully next time, and I appreciate your time sincerely. Have a great day.
You too. So our next item is deferred to the April 17th meeting. And so now item 10.3.3 is the Discovery Center Biodiversity and Aquarium Facility. Another exciting project here. So the president and CEO of the Discovery Center, Dov, should I try to pronounce the last name? Let me see.
Just call me Dove. It's perfect.
You're so kind. Thank you. That was here to present. And again, we do have a PowerPoint here that we're going to share. So Dove, once we get that up and running, you'll have 10 minutes to present. And then if you've been watching, we'll have some good discussion.
That's great.
Well.
It'll be an exciting morning. And Margaret Campbell will be joining me in the presentation. She's our lead exhibit designer, and she's on now. I just wanted to flag that and make sure that she has the audio as well and camera.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Okay.
Simon, are you going to be controlling our PowerPoint today?
I believe I will be deferring to my colleague who's just loading that up, but I am on standby if need be. Oh, okay. And I will be jumping in and doing that now, Mai.
Thank you so much, Simon. I kind of thought that might happen. While that's coming on, we will welcome Councillor Laura White has joined us as well. So welcome, Laura. Dev, it looks like we're all ready.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I hope Margaret is on as well. She'll be joining me. Margaret is our lead designer for Discovery Center. First of all, thank you so much for accommodating us. And this will be the news to many of you, even though it was announced last year at an event at Dalhousie University. The city for many years has been looking at an aquarium. It's come up in many research surveys from Narrative and so on over the years that this is something that is desired by the citizens of Halifax. The challenge, as we all know, is the investment in an aquarium and the ongoing operating is a challenge. And if you looked at some other cities, you could go up to 100 million for some of them. One of this size would typically cost around 20, but Discovery Center, and which we'll talk about in a sec, our approach to projects like this is to be a little bit creative and agile in how we work with things. Use the assets that are already in our city and use them to maximum potential. And this is something that we've been working, had our a nose to the grindstone, and it's been fairly quiet, but we see this as an opportunity to present this to the Community Economic Committee and hopefully move forward to an investigation by staff to work with us so we can provide you further details. So if I could go to the next slide, please. So Discovery Center International is actually a social enterprise set up through the Discovery Center. Yeah, there's a beautiful turtle there, a sea turtle. We our full focus when we first opened the center, for those of you that have visited Discovery Center, and I encourage you to do so if you haven't, it's a unique facility, actually, not just in Canada, but globally. We had visits from folks from all over the world. Can you help us set up something like what you have here? Can you build us an exhibit? And we chose to set up the social enterprise primarily to help our communities in Nova Scotia, but also across the globe, to set up science centers as their own. It didn't exactly align with the charitable portion of our operation, but we wanted to set this up to help others. And one of our, as we were working through a number of projects, Dalhousie approached us with the concept of leveraging space they have at the Steel Ocean Building on Oxford Street, a significant amount of space. And Dalhousie has been very generous in providing that space to be able to set up Halifax's first research aquarium, and in fact, probably one of the most unique facilities in the world. And the reason is that we have the highest, as many of you know, concentration of ocean science expertise, ocean PhDs per capita globally. And to have access to all of that knowledge and content and relevancy on an ongoing basis is a dream for a facility like this. So we worked with, if we can move to the next slide, on securing a donor. And this is something that Discovery Center's developed some good expertise in. Along with Dalhousie, we pitched a donor who has strong connections to marine biology. His name is Ross Beatty. And he contributed, and it was announced last year, $8.2 million to the project, which gave it a very solid start. To date, north of 10 million has been raised, and it's the bulk of the capital funding for the project. And the reason that it's not as expensive as your typical aquarium is the building is already there. A lot of the life support systems, the expertise, the aquaria. So we were able to work on a very creative plan to develop a facility that will be unlike anything anyone has seen. Not just because it's not necessarily the size of it, which it will be a smaller facility compared to, say, what they have in Toronto, the Ripley's Aquarium, but in terms of the impact on the community and the access to young people, families, showcasing the research that's going on, encouraging more youth to get involved. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later. So we've leveraged what's already there. And if you had built this as a greenfield starting from scratch, it probably would be 20 million. We've managed to keep the capital costs at a reasonable level. And we'll talk more about the status of the project and when it'll be complete. But certainly it's around the corner. And I'd like to pass on to Margaret right now, our lead designer, if she could take us through slides 4 to 8. Thank you.
Yeah, so the vision behind the Beatty Center is really to bring together Dow's world-class oceanographic research with Discovery Center's 30 years of experience creating immersive and interactive learning environments. The center will really be a behind-the-scenes look at some of the most interesting scientific work that's happening right here in our city. And it will tell visitors the story of some of the marine species that are found right across the province, the threats that their ecosystems face, and what's being done to protect them, not only by researchers at places like Dal, but also by members of our community. So we can move on to the next slide. So all of the content in the center will be presented in Mi'kmaq, English, and in French. Some of the highlights will include more than 25 live animals, many of which will live in the 3 largest tanks that each depicts a different marine ecosystem found here in Nova Scotia. There will also be a number of interactives, both tactile and digital, that will give visitors the chance to really step into the shoes of a working research scientist. But the showpiece for the center is really going to be the 18-meter long blue whale skeleton. She'll be just the 22nd to go on public display anywhere in the world. So we can move on to the next slide. So we've got here a tour of the center. I'm not sure, I think you have a YouTube link.
Simon, yeah, that's perfect.
Here we go. Yes, here's the entrance in the Steele Ocean Sciences building.
Margaret, we're kind of eating up a lot of your time on the video. I think you might think that we've got the gist of it.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good. Yeah, you can see that tank on the right, that depicts a rocky reef with the 360-degree immersive viewing experience. But okay, we can move on to the next slide maybe.
The internet online, it's slow moving.
Yeah, so one of our key target audiences is going to be preschool and elementary school aged children who are expecting to come to the center both with their families, but then also with their classes from school. Teenagers and preteens will also come to the center with their school, but then additionally, they'll come as part of wider campus visits for prospective science students considering doing their degree here in Halifax. For tourists and visiting academics coming to the city, they'll come to the center to get more insight into the really cutting edge research that's happening here in HRM, but also they'll want to get a scientist's take on the things that they're seeing as they explore around our province's beautiful environment. And then finally, for community members and neighbors of the center who have an interest in ocean science or conservation, we see the Beatty Center becoming really a community hub for them. So we can move on to the next slide. So the Beatty Center will be aligned with a number of HRM's own strategic priorities, but I think one of the most important ways is that it's going to empower youth from all backgrounds who have an interest in science and in conservation to pursue this as a career path. All of our interpretation has been developed using the Science Capital Framework, which is a concept that has emerged from an ongoing longitudinal study out of University College London that has sought to understand and reduce inequities in science participation after high school. So the data tells us that kids from all backgrounds have a keen interest in science and in conservation in particular, but there are real stark inequities in who actually feels like it's a career path that they can aspire to. So we think that having the Beatty Center as a resource for youth here in the city will empower kids from a wider demographic section to see this as something that they can actually pursue and dedicate their educational and professional lives to helping us with. So the next slide.
Okay. I'll talk to the budget briefly. Of course, you may want to go in a little bit of deeper dive and if as we work with staff, we normally in a project like this, you would have a capital budget. You'd come in with a capital ask, and then some form of operating for a project of this size and so on. And what we are looking to the municipalities to support us, we see this as HRM's facility. It is the first aquarium. It's the first real aquarium in the province, likely in the region of its kind. The research that will go on showcased the focus on biodiversity and the impact of climate, and encouraging all the youth of our community to become junior marine biologists. The technology that's being studied in the ocean, all the other assets, this fits in very closely. And the one gap we've had in our community has been a facility like this. So we are seeking initially for the first few years of operations, 200,000 annual operating towards the operating of the facility. Will be raising the remainder of the funding annually. We've kept the costs to a minimum, leveraging what's already there at Dow. So it is approximately a 650 to 700,000 a year budget, very sustainable at these levels. And we would like to see the city of Halifax own this facility and be proud of having the first aquarium in the region of this kind, and actually one that's unique globally. We can move to the next slide. We see some significant outcomes, and we've been very conservative with these outcomes. We do see that over the next 5 years, 100,000 visits minimum through the facility. The campus itself, it'll be highly accessible to students and faculty as well, and 10,000 youth through various outreach programs, as well as schools coming in annually, 50 schools, and work placements going on each year that will support youth in pursuing careers in ocean science. One of the biggest challenges is the workforce development, and companies that move to the region are always looking for the best talent. And this will help prepare people to communicate to the public, communicate complex topics, also to build confidence. Next slide, please. So where we're at with the project is we've actually, we're quite far along, and we are in second quarter of 2025. We're already beginning to receive aquaria, program development. We've hired our first employee to lead the center as a manager of the Center for Marine Biodiversity, and our grand opening is planned for the third quarter of 2025 or thereabouts. We don't have the final timeline, but it's very close. We suspect it's going to be early fall for the opening. So the project has moved at a really good pace once we began construction and raised the capital funding, and we're now seeking to make sure that it has a really good start with the operating funding out of the gate, with support from the municipality as well as some other donors. Last slide, I believe. So that concludes the presentation. Really, at this stage, because will likely be the first time the committee has heard about this, we would like to work with your team to study it further and come back to council at some point with a recommendation.
Thank you very much, Doug. Thank you, Margaret. We do have some questions from councillors.
Of course, yeah.
So first up is Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you very much, Doug.
Thank you, Councillor.
This is exciting. I know that we hear about it all the time, really, as councillors, certainly in my career. So this is exciting. What's exciting as well is that it's linked to Dalhousie. There's so much great stuff going on there, and I think these kinds of partnerships are how I think one of the best models to move forward in our city, because that's what we're known for. I do have a question around your request, though. When you say you want Halifax to own it, help me understand what you're saying, because my understanding is you have the steel building that Dalhousie is contributing, are you asking us to buy that? Are you asking us to take like when you say we own it, like what do you mean?
To be the lead from in terms of the public support for it, because primarily of where it's housed in the city of Halifax, it's going to benefit most of the citizens of HRM. And we have planned further outreach with some interesting technology later where we would approach other levels of government and donors outside the region. But at this point, we see it as a very, because of its location and the schools that will come visit, they're not, it's going to be difficult to get schools 4 hours drive away. So we see it as a very centralized location in HRM. So meaning that the lead for this from the public levels of funding.
Okay, so we launched the first ball of money. Is that the idea?
Well, yeah, just it becomes known as Halifax's Center for Marine Biodiversity. It becomes the city taking the lead on this particular project. So that's what we're offering today.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We take full responsibility for everything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just before we go on to the questions and just a prerogative of chair, I'm asking for clarification that your ask is 200,000 annual operating funding?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. The next councillor on the list is Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chair Gammon. And thank you, Doug, for the presentation. I think it's Berkovicki, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay. I liked your presentation. I think it aligns really nicely with our existing ocean science expertise in Nova Scotia and in HRM in particular. I'm also excited to see your comments about inspiring more women in science and also more underrepresented groups in science. I think we know from looking at Indigenous and African Nova Scotia populations, they traditionally don't take the academic math in high school and then are unable to pursue science studies. I know, having looked into that in the past, that's been one of the barriers. So if we can get people excited about science when they're in grade 10, maybe they'll pursue the more academic math. So, but I'm curious about, you mentioned about attracting youth and attracting 50 schools. I know sometimes access to the Discovery Center there's been a bit of a barrier for that, just in terms of cost. And I'm curious about how you will attract some of the, I'll say, more inner city schools and other schools that may not have the funding, what you have in mind for that. And then if I have time, I'll ask another question just about operating funding versus having a grant and the dangers of ongoing operating funding. So, but first I'll deal with the first part.
Sure. Well, Discovery Center, I mean, I've dedicated my last 18 years at Discovery Center here at Halifax to making it as accessible as possible. You're always in a balance with sustaining the operation financially and allowing more groups. But what we do, and the beauty of this relationship, is that we are actually going to be leveraging a lot of the assets and the administration at Discovery Center for this facility to keep some of the costs down for the Beatty Center. So we're actually making a contribution in that sense. And typically what we do is we offer free access days. We don't wait for the schools to contact us. One of the biggest barriers is the transportation, the school buses. So if they're coming from further out, so we work with private donors and others to empower more access. And if you look at the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, it's an endless stream of accessibility programs for our community that we've had at Discovery Center. So we do have, for the tourist market, we charge regular price, but there's an accessible and sometimes quite often a free rate for others. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it somewhat addresses that, because we all know there's an affordability crisis out there, particularly for families. My other question is, if your request was about operating funding. Traditionally,
Yes.
governments at all levels shy away from operating funding because it becomes an ongoing thing, whereas a grant to, put a piece of capital in place or to establish something is not something that continues forever and then leaves the whatever level of government it is being responsible for a program being cut possibly in the future. Can you speak to this? I realize the reason you're looking for operating is to get launched and to get you on somewhat of a firm footing, and then you can hopefully gain the revenue from the marketplace. But I'm just curious about your thoughts on this, because this would be non-traditional from my perspective.
Yeah, well, we see it as certainly a timestamp on it. It's not, doesn't have to be forever and a day, but certainly out of the gate. Typically what we do with the city is there's a contract, 3 years, 5 years. So there's a limit on it. So it's not considered an ongoing forever. And we look at, how the operation proceeds. In terms of capital, like if we were to come to you for a capital ask on something like this, if you recall, for the Discovery Center, and that was back in 2017, that was 2 million. So it would be a higher number than the operating for 3 to 5 years of this project. So we see it as just a support out of the gate. We'd look at a minimum of 3 years, 5 years, in lieu of making a capital contribution. So we've raised all the capital. The capital's done. The risk is being taken on by Discovery Center. Issues with the building, that's all us. But we see this as an alternative way to support us ongoing.
Yes, and congratulations on the capital. I think my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you
Councillor.
very much, Councillor Steele. We have two members, two councillors not members of CPED, but who have joined us and would like to ask a question. Before that happens, if I may, as chair, and a little bit based on what Councillor Steele has said, I'm kind of wondering, it's almost like, the Field of Dreams, you build it and they will come. This is like, we build it and hopefully the operating funding support is going to come later. So was this concept of operating funding in any way socialized earlier than this presentation with HRM?
We have certainly staff are aware of it, the operating funding and the level. We have talked to a number of folks about the project. This really is the first time we've presented formally at the recommendation by a councillor on this call, and I thought it was a great idea to present to the group here.
And Councillor Mancini, I might think.
Yes.
Thank you.
Who also wants to be in the Sports Hall of Fame, and now he's a scientist. But certainly, we wanted to put this in front of you because we've had our head down and been working very hard on the project, and it's been very successful from a budget and timeline standpoint. At this point, we're very close to opening, and it's time to now socialize. So this is our first time formally presenting.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification.
Thank you, Councillor.
And now we can go to Councillor Steele. Oh, sorry, Councillor Steele was just on. Sorry, my screen is getting smaller by the minute. Councillor White.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This was an interesting presentation. It feels like worlds colliding for me. I remember going to the Discovery Center as a kid, taking my kids to the old one, the new one. I worked at NSCC at Cove in Ocean Tech before I came here, so this is kind of cool. And this would be in my district.
Nice to meet you, Councillor.
Yeah, you too, Dow. Yeah, at Dow. So it's an interesting project for sure, but yeah, definitely operating funding scares me. What did I want to ask you? I wanted to ask about, is there any collaboration with the Natural History Museum? When we talk about a blue whale skeleton, that brings me back to there, or is there any connection with with
Well,
the
there
province
always
and
is
what they do there.
connections. Yeah, there's always connections with local facilities as you move forward. In terms of the blue whale skeleton, this is something led by the researchers at the university. It's a very unique piece. I don't know if there would be any space in the Museum of Natural History, but our team works with them on a regular basis. In any event, we collaborate on exhibits and what's coming in and not to duplicate. So there is a lot of back and forth there, but as well as other facilities in the community. But this aquarium, it wouldn't. It's much more than the natural history. It's the whole biodiversity, the research that's going on throughout our province and region, through the ocean supercluster and interpreting that. So it's a little bit broader than that. And so we didn't engage them formally on this particular project or the blue whale, but we would see that as an ongoing collaboration.
Thank you very much, Councillor White. And now we have Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dov and Margaret, good to see you both. Thanks very much for the presentation. And just for the committee's benefit, Maggie McDonald and her team, along with the mayor, are aware of this project. And my recommendation was to come to this committee first to get the ball rolling for investigation. So, you look puzzled, Kathy, sorry.
Yeah, no, Tony, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Is everyone else having a hard time hearing me?
It was for a bit, but you're back.
You're back a little bit. Yeah.
Quickly repeat that, and hopefully I have my time back. Just to clarify, Maggie McDonald and her team are aware of this project, along with the mayor. Dov and I had a chance to meet, and along with some other councillors too. My suggestion to Dov, as he alluded to, was to come to this committee first for, to start the ball rolling to investigate it. Dov, I'm wondering if you could, it wasn't clear, can you break down the finances right now? You talked about the funding that's come from the donation, 8.2 million. I didn't see it in the presentation. Maybe I missed it. Are there other orders of government involved or asks being made there?
This project, the capital, has been totally the great team at Dalhousie University, with some support from our Discovery Center, has raised all of the capital, and there's still a little left, but it's very close. We don't have any concerns about the capital. We do, but at a certain point we said, if the city of Halifax were to pursue the construction of its own, be part of an aquarium construction, right, it would be millions, and then millions of ongoing operating. So here you could have the beauty of an aquarium. No one could ever say you don't have an aquarium in the city, but this is not, this will not be animals in captivity or anything like that. It's going to have we actually have probably the best experts in animal care that will be involved in maintaining the aquaria and securing new species and taking care of them, anything from octopi and so on. So all of that's covered, species collection, everything, the ongoing life support. We've come up with a very realistic budget that's been tested.
Great. Sorry, Dov, I'm cutting you off because our chair is going to cut me off here shortly. So I just
okay, sorry about that.
No, that's quite all right. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear from the financing perspective and what we're talking about here. The reason I became excited about this project is because, having Halifax's first research aquarium is amazing. We've been talking about aquarium way before my time on council. When you talk about the work the Halifax Partnership does and attracting businesses and people to come here, there's a lot of reasons and a lot of points they make, but one of them is our harbor and our ocean. If you remember back to the Ivory Report, when our province was in not the strong shape it is now, the Ivory Report talked about taking advantage of our ocean. We now see the Cove and the work that's being done, the research that's being done at Dow and other universities, and the impact on climate and the leadership that we're taking on climate change. I just lines up so well. And that's why I really feel that it's worthwhile to take to the next step. Now, Dov, as you probably saw the first presentation, no surprise, we are in budget right now. There's a lot of concern on our budget, and we have some tough decisions ahead of us, and we're trying to keep the tax rate down. And this is a new ask, and so we want to be quite clear on that. But still, I think it's worthwhile to investigate. I am not on the committee, but I have hopefully, one of the committee members will be so kind. I did put a motion in there and it's up to the committee members to do so. But colleagues, I do believe it's worthwhile to investigate it, take to the next step. Doesn't mean it's a done deal. There's lots of work to be had. The issue of operation is a good question. It's not typical of what we do, but however, as Dov said, the capital is done. So I support going to the next step. Hopefully somebody will grab the motion. Thank you, Dov and Margaret. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini. And now we'll go to Councillor Cuddle.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor.
Thank you for this presentation, and thank you to my colleagues for the discussion. I've been kind of hanging back here, just wondering where this was going to go, because it is a unique ask. You know, I love the project. I love the integration of research and industry and tourism and the city. You know, those are the kinds of things that we're always talking about value add projects, right? And you know, just you know, thinking about, there used to be the touch tank over at the Bedford Institute of Oceanography. I remember going there with my kids, and the seal tanks at Dalhousie that I remember visiting when I was a student. There, and you know, we are an ocean city. This is certainly something I promote a lot, mostly through sailing and you know, the use of the ocean around for recreation. But the science piece is also something that I think is an extraordinary, unique value, a unique asset we have that we certainly haven't capitalized on enough. I wasn't sure what to expect in this presentation in the beginning. Like I'm thinking, like, you know, the Boston Aquarium or Ripley's Aquarium in Toronto, and I was just like, oh my God, how is this going to work? So, you know, this is compared to that, this is I would say more modest. I look back at things that HRM has supported. You know, I know we were going to contribute. It was a significant contribution of a few $1 million, I believe. I think it was 3.5, but I could be wrong. I've got so many numbers in my head from budget. They're all swirling around in there like a soup. But, you know, that we were going to contribute to the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia was one. You know, and we contributed money to things like the convention center. That was a significant contribution. You know, so it's not out of our realm of contributing funds to, you know, important institutions. This one's a bit of a different model. It's a bit of a unique model. So I'm not 100% sure how that would work. And that being said, I think the ask is you know, it is also relatively modest, as you pointed out, Duff, that you know, it's 200,000 over 5 years. You know, I think the question just for me is how does this align with how HRM supports initiatives like this, and what might be possible. At the same time, you know, Councillor Mancini was talking about the difficult discussions we're having right now at Budget Committee around prioritizing and focusing on core mandates. So at least that's my focus. But I see the value and the excitement in having a facility like this. So I will put for discussion and for investigation, I will be happy to put the motion on the floor that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to provide a staff report to evaluate and provide options in response to the Discovery Centre request of annual funding of $200,000 for 5 years towards operating the BD Centre for Marine Biodiversity.
There's a seconder for the motion. Councillor Steele, it looked like.
Yeah.
Councillor Steele? Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Cuddle.
So I think it was, I can't remember, Councillor Kent might have asked this question about, or maybe it was the last one. It's been a long week. About when you need the money for it. It's really to kind of get things rolling for your grand opening in the fall, I'm assuming. But if you could just clarify that, it just might help when to put in a timeline in this motion. I don't know if someone wants to do a friendly amendment just to get an answer back sooner rather than later, because I'm sure your plans, I don't know how contingent they are on this funding being approved or not, but it might be a consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cuddle. I appreciate your remarks about Ocean City and Science. I actually think Halifax should be called Science City, given what we have in our community, the assets we have, and the ocean science, but not just ocean science. There's all kinds of work going on here if you've attended our Discovery Awards. In terms of the timeline, obviously sometime in the fall would be ideal. We've worked with the city a long time on many different projects. That you have great staff. We can be very creative working together to, and I say, when I say creative, not not an on the line thing, but just coming up with ways to meet your needs and ours. And we want this to happen. We want the city to take the lead on it, not necessarily own it, as I used that term before, but take the lead. This is something our citizens will be very proud of in some challenging economic times, and not for a very high cost.
Right.
Thank you. Councillor Cuddle. Councillor Kent.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cuddle, for putting this on the floor. I'm happy to support it. I come from an ocean bearing family, a fisherman of the Shelburne area, but I also live in Eastern Passage, and as many of you know, I'm very proud of the locale and the Fisherman's Cove area. We've had touch tanks on and off over the many years, but I also know we have a young lady, Magali, who is, I believe she's still running. Tony, can you tell me the touch tank and the sort of the experience there in the Dartmouth, just by Kings Wharf, in that area? So that brings me to a bit of a question for you, Dov, as well. That there's no question that I think I'm excited about it. Wonderful fit for all the reasons that have been spoken of today. Knowing that we have around the city other like-minded and sort of situated scenarios where they are offering some version of what you might be doing there in a very, very small localized way, could you envision a time when there might be some partnerships that could help? Because these other ones are supported Absolutely. Very, very locally on a very small team of people who are, just trying to keep the doors open in the generalized way, not just for their particular program. But I think I could see that as being a really nice benefit to those experiences as well, and also it also could help with accessibility, access to some version of a small version of what you are doing in this project, and just getting people excited, a little more localized, and supporting really the same energies and the same interests around our oceans and what we are stewarding for it, right? So just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Councillor Kent, thank you, and thanks for bringing that up. We're very aware of the Back to Sea group. Yeah, we've done work with them in the past with Discovery Center. You cannot survive in the 21st century without partnerships and collaboration. Like in fact, when you pursue that in earnest, which we intend to do with this facility in a big way, now that we're getting close to the construction, it's working with a whole variety of groups related to ocean science and science in general, even people that are economists that study ocean resources and so on, like in terms of your background, not just an athlete, but being close to the sea. There's a lot of work on the social aspects of our living close to our oceans. So we see a lot of groups from environment to the economics of the ocean to the new tech, and working with a whole variety of groups and making things as accessible. Or excellent work that Magali does, and certainly she would be one of our collaborators.
If I could add to it just very briefly, Madam Chair, or I'm going to want to come back, but I'll do it now if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Is a way to honor and include the science of our fishing industries who are tapping into our natural resources in a a very sustainable way. We're proud of the work that's been done over the decades here in Nova Scotia, but I think I hope there's room for something there, because it is part of our experience here in Nova Scotia. It's part of our lifestyle, and that's an important piece to include as well. Someday, if not sooner than later, but later is okay too. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. I'm just mindful of the time. We do have public participation. We have a staff report coming up. So we have a motion on the floor. I see no other speakers to the motion itself. So if I might weigh in, and thank you, Councillor Mancini, for stick handling us our agenda with two motions. I absolutely agree that it's a phenomenal project. I am deeply concerned about the approach. I am deeply concerned about the request for operating funding and up to a 5-year plan. So while I may support the motion to see a staff report on it, I do want to be clear that I will find it very challenging to support this kind of an ask as an over budget this year. The timing concerns me. Where we are in our budget deliberations concerns me in terms of the tax rate that's coming up. This is operating and not capital, and so it does mean that it goes under the tax rate. So I just want to be clear on that and very honest and transparent. Motion is on the floor. There are no other comments. We'll call for the question.
Question.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. We will move on. Thank you very much, Love. Thank you, Margaret, for your presentation. Thank you, other
Chair
members
Hammond.
of
Thank you.
council who have attended. I appreciate that. We will now move
Time,
on.
everyone. Appreciate it.
Good.
Yeah. Madam Chair,
Yes.
because we're scheduled to go, I guess we're not scheduled to go to one anymore because we've don't have the heritage presentation. I was just going to ask for a 5-minute break, but we're not going till 1 o'clock.
We haven't changed the time on our agenda, but members of council and staff, if a 5-minute break is your desire, we can absolutely do that. Looking like there's consensus there. Let's take a break for 5 minutes. It's 11:26. That means that we're going to come back at 11:31. There you go. 11:31. We'll return. Thank you.
Thanks.
Simon, are you back? We were just at 11:32 now.
Thank you, Chair. I can take the screen down if we are ready to go.
We are.
All right. Welcome back, everyone.
So welcome back. We are now on item 11 in terms of our public participation. We do have 4 members who have advised us that they will be joining us. So in public participation, speakers can participate for a maximum of 5 minutes. We do ask that you keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to the chair. And our clerk, Simon, will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining and when your time is complete. So our first speaker to welcome today, Joseph Jettison from District 12. Joseph, are you with us? I see your name there, Joseph, but it looks like you may be on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you. Can you see me?
We can hear you. We don't see you, which is okay, but.
Okay. All right. Now let me know when you want me to begin.
You can begin now. Thank you.
Oh, yes. My name is Joseph J. Sudasan. Thank you for this opportunity to address the Standing Committee. This relates to the short-term accommodation legislation. I was aware that HRM and the province want to address the housing shortage issue, both long-term and short-term, here in Halifax. And when the legislation was passed a couple of years back, it had some unintended consequences to certain people like myself who own their own home and have available accommodation that is suitable for rental. As it stands now, I've reached out to various members, provincial members in housing, and also to various members in the municipal government, and as well as to staff at various levels. The point I know I only have 5 minutes, but the point I want to bring up is the development permit that applies to homeowners that is required. There's a fee of $250 required to rent a room to rent available room in one's home. So I'm wanting to mention that the current legislation, that $250 applies to every stakeholder who has rooms, be it a contractor or a developer, as well as to homeowners like myself. I'm in a situation where, as I say, I would more than welcome. I've had in the past people from out of country come and stay at my home short term. At the moment, we are in a situation where if you rent for short term 28 days or less, you have to pay the development permit fee of $250 plus the annual provincial registration number. To get a provincial registration number, you have to pay a $50 fee, so that's $300. It exceeds my personal budget on my income to be paying that. So at the moment, staff is reviewing the legislation. They will provide a report, I presume, by the end of the year to council, and the legislation hopefully will be amended to take into fact that not all of us who rent rooms can afford to be paying the $250 at once in their monthly budget. So this is the reason I wanted to address your committee to see if there's anything can be done in the shorter term before the report is put out in the fall to assist us to open up our homes with accommodation to again address short term and also long term. I've had people stay longer than 28 days. I've had people stay shorter than 28 days. I've submitted a written report that is forwarded to the Standing Committee, with gives more detail and more time than I have available to speak today. to the committee. So the two things. One, it's good that the staff is reviewing the current legislation to address this $250 fee as it applies carte blanche to all individuals who are renting short term. And I know staff and council want to encourage people with homes and contractors and developers who are developing accommodation to rent long term rather than short term. But it's inconveniencing people like myself to open up our homes to potential renters to live in our homes long term. As you can appreciate, you wouldn't want a stranger to stay in your home long term unnecessarily. So this is one of the things I want to bring up. And if there's anything that can be done in the shorter term while the legislation is being reviewed to assist us, because I do need the income for the rental that I have, for my guest room that I have in my home. So that's a second part I want to address to council. I know I could wait until the end of the year, but right now I do need that income. So I reached out to staff and they said they can't change, they can't do that because—
30 seconds remaining.
Yes, thank you very much, Simon. But so this is why so staff asked me to reach out to council, and I am doing so. And council obviously wants to the staff to finish up their report. So I'd like to leave it at that, and please read the report that I submitted to the standing committee with more details. Hopefully this will work out. If many homeowners can open up their homes, it'll address the housing issue, both short term and long term. But right now, yeah. So I will leave it at that, and hopefully something will come out of this. I'm willing to meet in person with any councillors and mayor. I've already discussed this with Janice Steele as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joseph. We appreciate your comments. And now the next person on our list is Rebecca Jameson from District 7.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see you. Thank you,
Okay,
Rebecca.
thank you very much. I'll just sort of get myself aligned here. Okay, thank you. Could you actually move to the next slide, please, Simon? Anyway, my name is Rebecca Jameson. I live at 1074 Wellington Street. I'm a member of the Hugs Community Garden, and I live at Century Tower, which actually overlooks the Goresbrook Field. And I am speaking to the rugby club proposal for a clubhouse, and I'm speaking as a member of the community, a neighbor of the park, and someone who is very interested in seeing the park maintained as a multi-use facility. First of all, I'm also here with my neighbor, Pat Whitman. We are sharing the computer, but she is available to answer questions. We fully support the staff recommendation that your committee recommend that HRM decline the proposal. Their recommendation was based largely on the cost and alignment with the Goresbrook Park plan. However, we think there are other points that also deserve comment, and that's what I will explore briefly today. Second point, while we support the recommendation, we do not support the proposed alternatives, which anticipate that the site might be developed in the future should funding become available. We do not regard the location at the west end of Goresbrook Field as an appropriate site for a clubhouse or similar structure, regardless of funding. First of all, it is very close to two schools off the picture, English Street Elementary School, and further to the north, the Goresbrook Junior High School. It's also very close to private homes. It's embedded in the middle of a residential community. There are condos here, and the community garden is here at one end of the field. Could you go back? we regard this location as making the site unsuitable for a licensed establishment of any kind, particularly proximities to schools and to a playground which opened recently, specifically designed to be accessible for disabled children. The second main point on the location is that it will occupy the west side of the berm in Goresbrook Park. And this is a very popular sledding area for young children in the winter. There were even snowboarders there last weekend. And it's also used at recess time by school children, unstructured play, daycare outings. It's actually quite a busy spot, especially the young children who find the main sledding hill a little bit further away rather too challenging. Again, I remind you of the proximity of the school and the playground to the proposed site. I am actually a geologist. I'm a professor emeritus of earth sciences at Dalhousie, and there's bedrock under the field, and not very far under. There's bedrock outcrop at the west side of the berm. And in addition, this site is actually quite far from functional water and sewer lines, and both of these factors would make construction quite expensive. I do not know how costs were estimated with the current proposal, but they're likely to be on the low side. And finally, we question the appropriateness of a private clubhouse in a public park. Staff also commented on the level of community engagement to date, and we do not regard this as adequate to address the current proposal. The previous Goresbrook Park consultation, which my neighbor participated in, did not even anticipate the possibility of a clubhouse or community center in the park. They did anticipate the possibility of washrooms, which would be most welcome. There was no HRM participation or oversight of the informal process that was undertaken by the rugby club. And we think this process was great to introduce to the neighbors and the community the ideas. Nothing wrong with that, but it shouldn't have been the end of the process. More public participation overseen by HRM, we believe, is required.
30 seconds remaining.
Okay, finally, and in January 2020, HRM committed to further consultation concerning Goresbrook Park before any changes were made and before an implementation plan was developed. And this should not be abandoned. It hasn't happened yet.
And I think it's important that we do support the staff report, which does not recommend that the rugby club go forward with their clubhouse for a variety of reasons that staff has outlined in their excellent report. Thank you.
Time is concluded.
Thank you very much. Pat Whitman, you are next on the list, and you do have 5 minutes if you would like to continue.
Just to add to the comments that Becky made, I participated with many residents 5 years ago in the overall staff report, and there was community engagement. And the important thing that came out of that study 5 years ago was the regional council's recommendation and approval that renovations, total upgrades, changes be made to Goresbrook Park, but that the staff, council, or whatever would go back to the community before any further changes or further recommendations were made to that plan. And so we're in a position now where the club has recommended, city staff is not agreeing with the rugby club's idea, and that the community has not been asked for further engagement. That's likely because staff isn't recommending it. And we are aware of other rugby clubs in the area. And Councillor Cuttle, you have one in your area, which is located in a big field surrounded by trees. You can't see a house in any direction when you are at that particular facility. And it's a bar, and that isn't anything that's suitable for this particular area in Goresbrook Park. It's a family-oriented area, and what is a rugby club going to do with a bar that will probably not be used for sport for 8 months of the year? You know, they do not play rugby in the winter, so that means they're going to have to come up with other options to provide revenue or cordial friendship with other people. So we have a potential for a park with a bar, with a 2,700 two-story square foot building, as Becky added, within spitting distance of a playground and yelling distance of a school. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pat. Thank you both for your presentations. The next person on our list is Anthony Black and Madison Denningson. Just for procedurally, Simon, it says joint 5 minutes. Does that mean we have 10 minutes or they're sharing 5?
Speakers had initially in their correspondence with me requested that they could do a joint presentation for 5 minutes. That said, I think in the interest of procedural fairness, if each member would like to speak for 5 minutes, we can certainly accommodate that as well.
Thank you very much, Simon, for the clarification. Anthony Black, you're welcome to proceed.
I'll actually let Madison start us off.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Madison.
Anthony. Oh, yeah. And thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the councillors present. I think it's very serendipitous that our conversations following Bruce's presentation this morning about the Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame and the importance of sport as a cornerstone to our communities. Unsurprisingly, we echo your comments from earlier. It's been my privilege to carry the torch for our club in pursuing the co-creation of a community athletic facility operated by our club in Goresbrook Park over these last couple of years. But it's actually been a journey going back decades. When I first joined the club in 2001 as a young athlete, we were operating a clubhouse with the HRM at the Wanderers grounds. Unfortunately, we were unable to save that building from demolition back in 2009. So we've made Goresbrook Park our home ever since. I know there are many different interests in the park, and we feel that our proposal fits very well within the kind of wide range of uses of the park, including the youth participation in sport. Having proper facilities with change rooms and bathrooms are well known to increase the accessibility of community sport and to drive participation. So we feel it's really important within that broader context. I initially obviously didn't want to take too much time because Anthony and I were sharing this, but I'll add on to that for those that had seen our previous presentations and potentially if you hadn't. Our club was founded in 1958. We're a very long-standing member of the community and have over 250 athletes, more than half of which are youth. So the presentation of our community and our club as an adult organization is actually inaccurate in modern days, and we look to encourage youth participation in sport from as young as 4 years old all the way through to competitive athletes playing in the Canada Games. And on our senior teams, we have athletes that have participated for Rugby Canada and at elite levels. So we really feel that we serve the community across a wide range of athletic pursuits. And then also in terms of community engagement. Once again, as we heard earlier from Bruce, the value of community sport to build leaders, to build professionals, and to build community members is core to who we are. And we try to open that to as many diverse communities as possible. Actually winning awards for the last 2 years in a row for our Pride Rugby program, where we introduce and reintroduce individuals to the sport community. So we feel we offer so many different things, and that this effort is really with that broader community push in mind. So to be very explicit, I'd urge the councillors and the committee to reject the staff report or explore the alternatives highlighted in the staff report, as there are many ways to kind of co-create and co-develop these solutions going forward. Once again, as I assumed Anthony and I were sharing time, I'm happy to cede the remaining of my time and answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Madison. Continue, Anthony.
Thanks, Madam Chair and councillors. This is a project we've been working on for a long time, and which we presented about to the past edition of this committee over the past 2 years on 2 different occasions. Councillors Cuddle and Purdy were members of that committee, but we've also met with the new members of the committee, as well as Councillor White, to bring them up to speed. And so I just want to say thank you for everybody's time and your questions and your input. We have about 40 members of our club, 40 members and supporters of the club who've let me know that they plan to pause their day today to tune into the meeting. And there's a lot more who are at school or at work who are, curious and eager to hear the results of the discussion. Yes, as noted, the staff report recommends that you decline our proposal. It also offers 2 alternatives that would allow the project to move forward. That report was released on Tuesday, and yesterday we sent a letter with some responses to the contents of that report. I didn't really want to go through that point by point right now, but I guess I wanted to address some of the things that were brought up by Ms. Whitman and, sorry, Rebecca, I don't remember your last name, but Rebecca and Pat, who are both engaged citizens who care about their neighborhood and about the park. We care about the park as well. I grew up not far from that park, sledding in that park, and as an adult, it continues to be a very big part of my life. They referred to the multi-use nature of the park. We think that this project is consistent with multi-use, that multi-use characteristic, and it adds full-time potential for use during the winter in those 8 months that they referred to, where they wondered what we would be doing. One of my goals is to get a yoga class in there on the regular so that it can be an active space, not just in the summertime, but also in the colder months, that's an active space for people of all ages, and that's in line with the Halifax Green Network strategy. The English Street School was mentioned as well. Please note that we have a letter of strong support from the principal of the English Street School. It's very important, as noted, that this is in a residential neighborhood, and the sensitivity to that neighborhood is very important. And we want to make sure that we have a good relationship with neighbors, a trusting relationship with neighbors, and that that they know that we're not putting the economy shoe shop in Goresbrook Park. Maybe it's a place that you can buy a drink legally and have a drink legally inside a building, but it's not up all night kind of stuff. There is a lot of sledding area in Goresbrook Park, a variety of grades. That portion of the berm represents a very, very small percentage of the available sledding. And I say that having grown up sledding on that park. The distance to the water and sewer is a real thing, but that's a real thing given the location that's projected in the Goresbrook Park plan for public washrooms. So that cost is going to be there regardless. And I'll just note that our project is about 50 meters, only 50 meters from where it's drawn in the Goresbrook Park plan. We are, as Madison mentioned, a family-oriented club. I want to say I think we have a good project. We think it serves the park using community really well. We think it's in line with the spirit of the Goresbrook Park plan, although our project was not contemplated at the time that plan was created, nor was the club consulted for the 2018 or 2015 public engagement. We promote community development and health and wellness. We add a lot. This project would add a lot to one of the fastest growing parts of the city. Halifax's downtown is the fastest growing downtown in all of Canada between 2016 and 2011, or 2021 rather. And it puts this set of public washrooms, which is identified as one of 5 high priority locations. Thank you. In the washroom strategy for less than what the city would have to spend if it was doing it on its own. And on top of that, it adds a beautiful new facility that will serve the community. So there's no washroom money in the capital budget, but there will be in the future, presumably, the cities to pursue this public washroom strategy. And so we urge you to prioritize Goresbrook Park, and we're happy to be a catalyst for that. We're really well governed. We are a long-standing organization. We are a family club, and we are hopeful to be in a position to collaborate with the city to make sure this project is all that it can be. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anthony. We appreciate your comments and participation, as well as Madison. I don't see any other comments or questions, so we will now move on.
Chair, if I can just request, where we're coming up to 11:58 now, might be a good time just to make a motion, if possible, to extend the meeting an hour.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Simon. I thought we had already done that before, but Councillor Kent, are you making that motion to extend?
Yes.
Thank you so much. A seconder, please. Councillor Steele, thank you so very much. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Nay? Motion is carried. Thank you so very much.
Thank you all.
Madam Chair, before we move forward, can I ask that Simon send out a copy of the report? It's not, in the meeting appointment I have yet to, I've opened every single one, and there's a lot.
I can let you know, I believe based on the size of that report, it's not actually possible to include in the meeting invitation. However, if you would follow the meeting link onto the webpage on halifax.ca, it is available there for download.
Alrighty, good, thank you.
And I thought I had just sent it to you, Councillor Kent, in another form, but.
Okay, I'll have a look there too. I've seen it and now I don't see it, so.
No worries.
Just want a refresher. Thank you.
Great. Are we okay to proceed? I don't want to rush. Okay, great. So our next item is information items brought forward. There are none, but we're now on to reports 13.1.1, which is the Halifax Rugby Football Club. I just see that our Councillor St. Amand has put it in the chat. Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. I think that's the report that we were looking for. So we don't have a presentation on this, but we do have Trish Higby, the Community Facility Partnership Coordinator, here to answer any questions. I'm just trying to open my chat again. Just give me 1 second there. Okay.
I'll just jump in to say I apologize. It's actually, my notes are incorrect on that. I believe Andy Conrad and Brendan Smithson are actually intending to answer questions related to this report today.
Oh, why, thank you. Welcome, Brendan. So would a councillor like to put the motion on the floor for discussion? Anybody can buzz in. Councillor St. Amand.
Sure. I just got to find it. Alrighty, here. Where is it here?
It is in your agenda.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the agenda. Here we go.
Yep.
Okay, so the motion is that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council decline the proposed HRFC clubhouse construction proposal.
A seconder, please. Councillor Cuddle. Thank you, Councillor Cuddle. We will now proceed to discussion on the motion. So we'll look for in the chat for anyone who would like to speak. Councillor Cuddle, thank you so very much.
My goodness, I feel like we've fallen out of practice on doing Zoom meetings here, searching for the buttons. Yes, so, I mean, this is a tough one for me because I mean, one of the things I've really learned to appreciate over my time on council is the rugby community. You know, I wasn't really familiar with the rugby community until, you know, four years ago, and since that time, have gotten to know what an inclusive, supportive, respectful community it is, even though there might be a little rivalry between the clubs, as is you know, healthy and some good sport. You know, in general, you know, I think it's a wonderful community, and really encourage anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to engage to do that. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, you know, reading the staff report and looking at this particular site, you know, I can see the point about not, even though I know I have one in my district, which I wasn't part of approving that, and I do appreciate it, but it's having a building that's for the exclusive use of an organization. You know, I can see how in the long run that can be problematic for a number of reasons, depending on what happens to the facility down the road. You know, one of the things that was mentioned is that there used to be a building on the Wanderers ground, which the rugby club took over and managed. And even when I look at the park plan for Gorsebrook, where there was an old wading pool, there were old buildings. You know, in some regard, I feel like, you know, the municipality at one point in time saw the value of having these spaces in areas where sport takes place, you know, for the use of community and for different clubs. Those relationships, whether I look at hockey or looking at building new arenas, you know, they're getting muddled, and we're in a bit of a state of transition between trying to figure out how do we appropriately support independent groups, independent organizations on municipal lands and within municipal assets. And, you know, it's a conversation I've been having, you know, regarding a new rink in Spryfield, and, you know, the requirements of hockey associations needing space, and the tension between, you know, a particular organization wanting to have their own space within a municipally owned public facility. And, you know, there are no really easy answers to this, because we're also in an evolving city, and it's, you know, also becomes a case where you're going to get more and more organizations, and how do you accommodate everybody? So, you know, I'm just sharing some of the thinking that I've been grappling with in relation to this and other facilities. The Wanderers grounds would be another one, where you want to provide the opportunity for organizations to thrive and survive and provide that level of recreational opportunity that the municipality isn't doing, but at the same time being mindful of what a public space and amenity or facility is for, and how it's funded, and its access to it. So I'm just going to put those thoughts on the floor for now, and I look forward to hearing what other members of the committee have to say about this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cuttle. Just in the interest of time, I do know that we're, you know, extended to 1 o'clock. I do have another meeting that starts right at 1 o'clock, so we will have that hard stop at 1. So if we could be as succinct as we can, we do have another item on our agenda. So just making sure that we're all aware. So Councillor Laura White is not on the
Just a point of order there, Madam
Yep,
Chair.
sure.
We did approve this agenda. It was a heavy agenda, and we did
Yes.
approve it till 1. I do think that we should have our 5 minutes to speak without feeling encumbered. And if it's a matter of managing the agenda, then that should be it should be dealt with at that stage. I think people should be able to speak, have their 5 minutes. Thank you.
My sincerest apologies. I had no intention to limit anybody to the 5 minutes. I was just saying that we were stopping at 1. So my apologies if that was not communicated in a way that it should have been. Councillor White is not on CPED, but it is something that's in her district. So with the indulgence of the members of CPED, if you don't mind, I would allow Councillor White.
Okay, thanks everyone. I am very interested to hear what you all think. I agree with Patty. This is a tough one. I think long term, I do want to see something happen in Goresbrook Park as a community center. Like there's not many community centers in District 7. We kind of depend a lot on university spaces, and there's not a lot there. I'm thinking of something like there's a small community building in Isleville Park and a small one in Larry O'Connell. But there's really nothing in District 7 other than St. Mary's Boathouse and Seville Community Center. So I really like the word the catalyst that Anthony used there. I really like how this project has brought up this discussion, and I think it warrants further ideas going forward. So I've spoken to the Rugby Club about this. I've spoken to neighbors. I've spoken to staff. It just feels like we're just a little bit not there on all the issues quite yet to go ahead with this, especially because we don't have a washroom in our capital budget, and I believe that the other one was kind of built a project around a washroom already happening. So yeah, I would love to hear more from staff. Like I said, I haven't been able to get through this whole report, just the timing. I think it did come up really quick with everything we've got going on, but I'd love staff to really explain their reasoning and path forward, which we've had some discussion on, talking about the facilities master plan and alignment with building a washroom facility there. And I just think, having a small deck and cafe and community facility would be a great thing, and being able to watch your kids play on the playground and have a drink, alcoholic or not, probably not alcoholic, that doesn't sound popular, but I think that's a great thing, and I've seen it in lots of public spaces around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Did I hear that you had a specific question for staff, though?
I'd really just like, I'm disappointed we're not getting a presentation on this. I feel like a lot of work has been put into it, and I'd like to hear from staff on their decision and kind of path forward if we'd like to see a community space in that park going forward.
Okay. Brendan, is that something that you would like to respond to?
Sure, I can do that. I'm just making sure that Andy wasn't responding. So Brendan Smithson, Regional Recreational Services Director. Thank you for your question, Councillor. So right now the staff report was asked to align with our plans and policies. And as mentioned previously, within the Goresbrook Park plan, there was no recreation space or open space, which is where wasn't aligned in terms of this opportunity. As well, looking through the CFMP2, talks about community spaces and distance between them, which was a 10-minute drive. And this space would be within, if you created a space there's already a space at St. Mary's Boat Club and Citadel High, which are both 7 minutes away. In saying that right now, Parks and Recreation is looking at updating the CFMP2. That work is already progressing and looking at recreation centers in terms of what that will look like. And there may be some changes. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes within the world since the last time that's come forward. And so that the team would look at where the gaps are within recreation centers and others across the municipality, including this area, and may look differently once that is completed. And that obviously goes to council for their review in terms of that. So from that perspective, answering the question today was not aligning with our plans and policies that we currently had in place. but there are obviously plans that are being updated, which I did speak with Councillor White about previously on that kind of pieces. And the washroom is on the washroom list in a priority. Wasn't in this year's capital budget, but we'll see as we go forward.
Thank you very much, Brendan. Councillor Kent?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Brendan. That's helpful too, although it kind of makes me still sort of feel ambiguous about this situation. I am a little concerned. I see in the report that the HRFC community engagement, they did some community engagement. I think what's potentially missing here is the municipal piece. And I'm a little concerned as well with the location of the building. I think that all of those little pieces make a difference. Each little piece of the puzzle one of those pieces can get in your way. So I'm glad to hear the CFMP. I'm trying to figure out it's the facilities master plan. What's the C?
Councillor, through the chair of the councillor, community, sorry. I should have done the whole acronym. My apologies.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think that's important when we're talking and the public could be participating in this. So I think I'm glad to hear that's up for renewal and review again. That is often the piece that is referred to when some of these big decisions are made. I'm happy. I love the rugby organizations. I didn't play rugby, and that's irrelevant. But at the same time, I do know that many people are enjoying rugby, and I think that it's only a matter of time that we put some energy into an investment. Can I have a little bit of insight into the other two groups? Do the other two groups have any clubhouse style situations that have any investment from the municipality? Two were referenced. Is that Andy that's going to answer that?
It is.
Great.
Yeah, Andy Conrad, manager of community partnerships. I think the two that are being referenced are the Graves Oakley TARS facility in Councillor Cuddle's district. And yeah, they took an opportunity when we were investing in rebuilding a washroom on-site and recapitalizing it, and they took advantage of that opportunity to propose a partnership, and they came on board as we were moving forward on a project and enhanced it, and they contributed between 25 and 35% of the project, the cost themselves, and they operate the washrooms for us. The other one I think is Graham's Grove, and again, the group came along with probably 35% of the capital construction, and they operate the building and pay for the operating cost of the building.
So I wasn't here when the original motion was put forward in the original discussion. Can you remind me for this conversation exactly what it is that this group is asking for? Like, are they asking for permission to build? Are they asking for contribution of capital? Are they asking for the washroom? And like, what is their big ask to us?
The original motion was for us to gauge their proposal against our priorities and our plans, and their ask would be for a contribution of 800,000 towards or 300,000 800,000 towards the $3 million project, and they would operate a portion of the building and have us operate the washrooms that would serve the park, which would be a little bit different than what is done in the other two locations.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because that's the piece that I feel like I was missing in relation to my thoughts on it. Because what we have to do always is balance what we have done and what we could do in the future. Now things change, don't get me wrong, but this one feels a little more exclusive than some of the scenarios that I've heard about before and that I'm familiar with in districts that I represent or have represented. So I the language that Councillor White put is that we're not quite there yet. And I would like to maybe push it back to staff in a way that is so that it's, as we go forward with the facilities master plan review, can we have this being reviewed at sort of at the same time as or very closely thereafter when they're getting closer? What I don't want to see is it fall off the rails and these folks have to start all over again. That's what I'm getting at. So I'm inclined to support the denial, but denial with an understanding that staff are going to pay attention to this ask as we go through the other steps and see where we land. Because it could be that we're getting to that point where we rely on which we do. We rely on community all the time to help provide service delivery of our programming, right? And they're not quite fitting the mold that we have right now, but they might in the future, or they might shape where we go in the future. So does that make sense? I don't know if we need wording for that. I don't know that we do. We'll just deal with this one. But if someone can come up with some wording that might facilitate that, maybe Brendan or Andy, to help us make sure that we don't lose sight of this ask.
The report does, we do know we have a willing partner in the area with a dedicated membership that can be involved if the capital budget comes that we're going to move forward on the washroom, or if the next version of the community facility master plan indicates that we need community space, or even just change rooms and showers and storage, and we would be engaged with the club at that point. Yeah. I don't know if we need a motion on that.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing the alternative really that fits where I think we're at either. So I'll leave it there and let others hear what others have to say. If not, we can move forward with this particular motion.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. The next person on our list, I believe, is Councillor St. Amant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think one of the things that's really encouraging here is that the entire discussion that we've had today has been fairly focused on foundational life-changing experiences that then have repercussions throughout someone's life. We spoke about education and seeding curiosity in sciences, but we're also now talking about the sparking that sense of confidence and community in participation in sport. And I do think that there's a lot to be gained from whether it's organized sport, individual sport, that sense of community and belonging that you get from that kind of experience travels with you throughout your life. And I think that's one of the reasons that this particular club has membership that's across so many different age ranges, because it really is something that keeps with you and continues to provide value as you progress in your life. I would echo the comments of my colleagues that have spoken already, that it feels like we're getting a little ahead in some respects. There's some pieces of this puzzle that I think need to be rearranged in order for it to be in better alignment with what our long-term prospects are. I still think it's valuable to keep this plan moving in some regards. But I do understand the difficult position that it puts us in, particularly, when it comes to setting precedents that whether something like this has been done in the past is a different consideration. It's what does this council feel is appropriate to its priorities, and its what considerations will go into budgeting going forward. So, I see really valuable bricks that could form the foundation of a plan here, but it just doesn't feel like it's completely gelled because there are some other plans that are in motion that may wind up having ultimately a positive impact on the proposal coming from this club. So, I think for that reason, I'm a little inclined to go with the staff recommendation, but I completely understand what Councillor Kent is suggesting, is that this should continue to be reinvestigated with staff because the bones are here. We really just need to figure out how to make it work on the basis of what the municipality prioritizes over the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. And now we have Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chair. I'm concerned about a couple of things here, and maybe the staff can comment on this. I don't know if we ever look at kind of, I'll say, equity across various sports and, you know, how much we're investing in various sports across the city, because, you know, various types of sports attract various types of athletes. And one thing I really liked about this proposal is they are overtly discussing and being overt about inclusion, particularly inclusion of LGBTQ trans athletes. So I wanted to just highlight my particular interest and notice of that in their comments. I'm also, one of the things was about alcohol and serving alcohol. I mean, I've had lots of alcohol to drink at St. Mary's Boat Club, one of the spaces that is referenced. So I know there are exceptions, and I've been at various sports venues across Canada and across the world where I've consumed alcohol while at the same time watching my high performance athlete children compete, and they were fairly compatible. So I did just want to mention that. It seems like we're kind of at a situation where we're looking at a proposal, but you know, as Councillor St. Amand has said, we're not quite ready for the proposal. It's not that the proposal is not ready for us. So I'd like to pick up on Councillor Kent's comments about can we I don't know, maybe even amend the motion to somehow keep this in play rather than just saying go away. And one other question that I have is, I'm concerned they're seeking federal funding. Does that funding go away, or are they going to lose the opportunity because we don't make this real? So I'm going to ask one of my experienced counselors to maybe help me out of this dilemma and help all of us out of this dilemma, because I think we like it, but we're not quite ready for it. But maybe staff can comment on that.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Andy or Brendan, would you like to respond to that before we go to a councillor?
I think I can start, and if Andy wants to add, so through the chair to the councillor.
Thank you, Brendan.
In terms of the funding, yes, it is a application that's out now. One of the requirements around the federal funding, and would also be provincial, would be approval to be able to build on the sites, which they would need our approval to do that. So this is why none of the funding would be secured at this point, because they would need that process to go through. We do see this quite often in the municipality, that to get funding, they would need our approval. So the answer to the funding that's there now, we don't know if that will continue in future years, or will there be other opportunities. That will depend on the federal piece of the government. And then also from a provincial standpoint, there is one grant that was identified in the report that is an annual grant. I will note that grant is, I think, up to 25,000. I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me. And their request was 800,000. So it would be strategic funding that would come from the province in terms of that. So the federal funding that they applied for, we're not confirmed if it will be every year. Obviously, it depends on the government. Provincially, that the one of those grants is there, but it is only 25,000. So to move forward with any of those grants, they would need approval from HRM to be able to access the land. So that is the hold up on any of those applications going to finding the final result within them.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you very much, Brendan. Andy, was there anything that you wanted to add to that?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kent, according to the chat, according to the chat, you're next on the list again. Is that?
Yeah, thank you. I just like staff to give us a sense, is there since now talking here, the alternatives that you offered were not, I don't feel like are a fit. The motion you said wasn't a fit, although we do have to decline currently. Can you think of a way of a language that would allow for us to put it in record that there's a further consideration after the which you've done. Just one second, I lost that. Sorry, I lost that report again here. Maybe we need to tweak the number 1 of the first motion, because I don't feel like I'm at the stage where any capital funding should be considered, but this project should stay on the radar. Maggie, maybe you can help us with that.
I was just going to say Maggie McDonald has popped up, so thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the Councillor Maggie McDonald, Executive Director for Parks and Recreation. I think you could, and we may want to just take it offline with the clerk and the solicitor for a quick second, but one option would be, for example, to leave the recommendation as is, but say at the end of it, say that Regional Council declined the proposed construction proposal at this time and engage in further discussion with the HRFC as a potential amendment. I think the body of the report does indicate that we would engage further with stakeholders when we're at the point of having a washroom in the capital plan, but certainly if council and committee wanted additional sort of confidence of staff engaging on this particular proposal, then that could be an amendment.
Thank you very much, Maggie. So do you want to, as you suggest, maybe take 2 minutes to compose something, and then we'll come back to look at what is provided and a potential amendment? Members of CPED, are you in agreement?
Agreed.
Thank you so very much. Let's take just 2 minutes. We can do a quick bio break.
I believe we will then be returning around 12:30, 12:31.
Yes.
And I'll throw up the screen now.
Thank you very much, Simon.
Councillor White had a question that we might be able to address leading into that.
Thank you very much. Councillor White, would you like to contribute something before they go back to compose something?
Yeah, I didn't bring up public participation when I was talking before. I think that's the key missing link here, but I heard both from community members that spoke and the rugby club that the fact that we didn't have an HRM official or even third party like public engagement on this, I think is really lacking, because I really don't know what other neighbors feel. I've only talked to a few people, and I heard it briefly mentioned at a PTA meeting. Like, we didn't get that. So I don't know when these things happen, but just flagging that I really feel that was missed. I feel that all parties feel it was missed, and you can see it in the what the rugby club is saying and what community members are hearing are quite far apart. So I'd really like, in going forward, that's defined more clearly about where that would happen in the process.
Excellent. I'm sure that Maggie's been able to hear that. So let's just take a quick break, 12:30. So 12:33, we'll come back. Thank you. Thank you, Simon. Sean, I've got something on my screen saying Zoom quit unexpectedly. Anybody else have that? Okay.
No, but you're here. You're here. So
I was going to say, I'll just ignore it then. Councillor Steele? Just in
Yes.
case. Yeah, just in
Yes.
case we end up extending again, will you be available as vice chair to chair if I need to leave?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Looks like it might be taking them just a few minutes longer.
Madam Chair, should we consider pausing that one and going back to it after we've completed the other? Something of that nature, unless it's going to come forward quickly?
Yeah, it's just that there's a motion
Thank
on
you
the
all. I
floor.
am just jumping back in shortly with some proposed wording. That said, we should
Okay. Perfect.
Thanks.
confirm that meets the expectations of you know what based on the discussion we've had.
Thank you, Simon.
To engage in the single initial projects to be considered. Okay, yeah, just posting into the chat now. And returning to the discussion, I believe would we return to Councillor Kent on her second?
Thank you. I can do that.
Okay.
So I think then, Madam Chair, should I put the motion on the floor now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I'll
Can I just, my apologies, I might suggest an amendment to what Simon has done here. You could just give me a quick moment.
I just want to find the original one. Okay.
So the original motion was on the floor, and now it's the amendment.
We ready?
Yes.
Maggie's working on something, I think.
I think that might make a bit more sense.
Okay, so I'm combining those together.
Yes, I see. Yep. Yeah, one frame.
Okay, well then I'd like to move that the motion be amended to add and direct to staff to engage the HRFC and other stakeholders on additional project elements that could be considered when a washroom capital project advances.
There a seconder, please? Councillor Cuddle.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Councillor Kent, would you like any discussion?
No, I don't really think I need any more at this stage. Get that
Great.
motion.
And I don't see any other names, so we'll call for the question on the amendment.
Question.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The amendment is carried. And now if we are ready to vote on the main motion as amended, and call for the question.
Question.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good work to get to that result. Just need to get back to my agenda. Sorry. Too many windows open, as they say.
No, that's what I was having the same trouble.
Okay. I can't find my mouse. Oh, there you go. And now we are on 13.1.2, which is Red Storm Community Art Space Venue Acquisition Grant. And with us, I believe we have Jesse Morton, our cultural planner, and Lindsay Corey, who is community developer for public art. There is a motion. We could put the motion on the floor, and then we can ask staff to. Thank you, Councillor Connell.
I'd be happy to put this motion on the floor. It is recommended that Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Regional Council, 1, approve the provision of a one-time contribution of $100,000 to Radstorm Community Art Space for capital costs related to the purchase of 2177 Gottingen Street, Halifax, subject to this amount being approved in the Parks and Recreation 2025-2026 budget, and 2, authorize the Chief Administrative Officer to finalize and execute upon confirmation of the approval of the funding in Parks and Recreation's 25-26 budget and municipality's standard contribution agreement with Radstorm as set forth in attachment 3 of this report.
So a seconder, please. Councillor Steele. Councillor Cuddle.
Yeah, so I don't think the previous council would be familiar with, I don't know if you're familiar with Radstorm. We've had some presentations to this committee from the group, as well as just a couple of doors down from an organization called the Bus Stop Theater on Gottingen Street. And, these are not-for-profit organizations that are providing programming to a community and particularly in this case to youth. And it's a organization that I know my daughter goes there occasionally, and so do some of her friends. It's open to youth across the municipality. We don't, I don't live in the North End. But they've been doing some great work, and I just think that it's an organization worth supporting. They need the money for their space, and I would just ask that CPED be supportive of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cuddle. I see no names on the list. Is there a call for the question?
Question.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Raising your hand. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Can now move on to the next items on our agenda. Motions, there are none. Councillors, do you have any motions? In camera, there is none. Added items, we had no added items. Notices of motion, is there any notice of motion? Seeing none, the date of the next meeting is March 20th, 2025, so we can ask for a motion to adjourn at 12:42. Thank you, Vice Chair Steele. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for pivoting to virtual, just so that we make sure that anybody driving home wasn't going to be in poor road conditions. So thank you and have a great afternoon.
Thank you all.
Good afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.